And God said, "Let there be
The
light."
Lord says, "Let my people go."
I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
This is the Talkin' Bible podcast.
Hi folks, welcome to another episode. Today's episode of Talkin' Bible, we're talking about Jesus healing a lame man at the, what do we call it? The Pool of Bethesda. The Pool of Bethesda. Hello Ed, good to have you again.
G'day, Rowan. Thank you.
Ed's been saying that our first two episodes were too long. That's probably because I talked too much, but we're going to try and trim this one down a little bit.
Yep.
But we could talk on this for an hour or two, but let's see how we go. So we're talking about a story in John 5. I think the last episode we were in John 7. We referred to John 4, with the woman at the well. And so this starts with Jesus. In this story, Jesus is going to Jerusalem for an unnamed feast. He shows up in Jerusalem and he meets this dude who he goes to the pool of Bethesda.
Yep.
And he sees a man there.
Yeah,
do you want to quote the story?
Sure. Yeah, sure. But it's about sort of kingdom living and miracles. So basically the story is about a guy that's been sort of laying at these pools for 38 years.
That's a long time.
Long time, looking for healing. And I always think, geez, wouldn't you have given up and gone home? But maybe there was no one to carry him away. Maybe the view of the water was beautiful and the wind coming through the place was lovely.
There was covered colonnades, so it was a little bit protected from the elements, this place.
Yes. Yep. And also there were others, though. There were a whole bunch of other people that had disabilities, were blind, all sorts of things. So, he'd been sitting there for 38 years and he was looking for healing and refreshment. Again, we have the analogy of the pool that brings healing. It's an external healing. So what's happened, he's been missing out all this time trying to get into the pool. Jesus comes down, questions him and says, "Do you want to be healed?" And the bloke, of course, says, "Yes, I do." And Jesus sort of simply basically said, "Get up, pick up your mat and go." And he didn't need this water, this physical water. And basically that's sort of where it sort of ended. He went his way. The guy didn't know that it was Jesus that healed him, and he just got up and left, and Jesus went his way. But later on, they came into the temple where he saw this man again, who appears by who apparently was sinning, because it says this in the Bible that hang on, let me just find it. Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat." And then he says, he
says something like, "See, you're well again. Stop sinning or something worse will happen to you."
Yeah, stop sinning. So obviously he'd gone away, he's healthy, but then he started doing wrong things and he was sinning once more. So then Jesus sort of talks to him and says, "Don't you realize what I've done for you? I've healed you." And he was making the point, I've healed you physically, but you're not healed spiritually.
Yes. Yeah, not completely whole.
Not completely whole.
Yeah.
And so he tried to make himself known that he was Jesus, because after that encounter, the guy realizes that it was Jesus, because what he does do is then race off to the Pharisees and tell them. Now, what our discussion was, and I couldn't come up with, was he telling them because he wanted to lift up Jesus?
Yeah.
Or was he, because he was still sinful, wanted to secretly tell the Pharisees that you're looking for this man, the man you're looking for is over there. So.
And that's a really good question. So I guess to sum up what I guess you're asking is, first of all, was he genuinely changed?
Yes.
We know he was changed. This guy's been living there for 38 years and he's been basically lying on a mat for 38 years and he has received healing, but did something, was it more than a physical healing or not?
Yeah.
And it's a really good question that even scholars don't get. I mean, you're speculating because you're having to develop, you're having to go beyond the context of the scriptures exactly, because it doesn't say what happened to this man beyond what happened. But we can infer a few things, which I think is where probably most scholars would settle on this. Not all by every stretch of the imagination, but I think they would say is going on here is that this is a picture of a man who had been healed, and had received something from Jesus, but yet remained opportunistic, self-centered, self-focused. What can I get out of it? And a normal mind goes, "Oh, that would never happen." If Jesus did that for me, I'd give him my entire life, right?
Correct.
That's where our mind goes, because we can think of another man in Acts chapter 2 who was lame beside the temple, and Peter and John came along and healed him, and he followed them. He went into the court's rejoicing and praising God for what he'd done. And we all think, yeah, that's what we'd do. But the scriptures are full of stories of people who receive things from Jesus or receive things from God and take them as some sense of I'm entitled to this, or don't fully grasp the gratitude of it. A bit like we talked about in the parable of the workers in the vineyard. Somehow we think we're entitled to this healing or this miracle or this thing from God, and therefore we don't receive it as a gracious gift, and become we become entitled. And I suspect that's what John has written this story.
Which beggars but understand, because he's been laying there for 38 years.
You'd think he would be thankful.
You think he would be thankful.
And yet, so what's good with these stories, when we get these stories where it goes, oh, that's ridiculous, or we get judgmental of people, I think the way to read those in the Bible is actually to turn it on its head. I say this about the Pharisees all the time. It's easy for us to sit there, hear Jesus rebuking the Pharisees and going, yeah, stick it to them, Jesus. But that's not how they're written. We're supposed to ask ourselves, where are we like the Pharisees? So I think in this story, where might I be like this lame man who has received all this good stuff from Jesus, but yet remains entitled?
Yeah.
Or thinking I deserve it, or it's all right for me, I got healed, but he got something more than I got. They always fall on their feet. How come I never get anything? That kind of mentality, a lack of gratitude. Yep. It's a stingy, stinky attitude. And I think that's probably even what Jesus is getting at in this man. You mentioned he was sinning. And it could read like Jesus caught him sinning. It could be that. Or it could just be that Jesus was saying, you haven't really had your heart cleansed yet. Because if we go back to the story when Jesus first appears to him in the garden, if Jesus first appears to the man at the pool, he says, do you want to get well? And he
didn't even say, it was, well, I've read it here. It was almost like I could vision this, and he didn't say yes. He just said, are you kidding me? With an attitude.
Yeah, with an attitude.
Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. It was like, are you kidding me, mate? It was.
I think it is that. It comes from the way down negativity of life.
Yeah.
Come on, get real, or only seeing things through our own lens. And I think so. There's a glimpse into this man, of a man who is so self-interested, absorbed. That's the right word. So self-absorbed that even when Jesus appears before him, he doesn't see Jesus for who Jesus is.
Yep.
Even when Jesus heals him, he's still self-absorbed. He's still not fully moved from himself into gratitude. And I think that's what John wants us to know in this story.
Yeah, and I think we can be like that.
I think we can be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. With all our lifestyles and luxuries and stuff, we don't thank God, because he's just going, we're entitled to a house, a car, a job and this and that. We're not entitled to
or even a specific thing that God does for us. Oh, Lord, we're desperate for that thing. We're desperate for that thing. And then God comes through and graciously gives us that thing, and we forget to say thank you. And and then we go straight back into, life's hard again. And that's the human story. We're not unique in that. It's a human condition. That's what Adam and Eve fell for in the garden. God gives them all the good stuff, and they wanted the one thing they couldn't have. Yeah. So we all do that. We all have this tendency to see the glass half empty. Yeah. And Jesus is trying to say, no, that's not how I operate in my kingdom.
And then and again too, we often that attitude can also lead to sin. So we've got to have that balancing, level of God in our lives to go, mate, be humble about this.
Yes.
Be thankful about this. All the Beatitudes. That's why he gave them to us to go, hang on a second, before you stick on off the rails, have a look. Just have a look at yourself.
Have a look at yourself. And that's what Jesus is getting at in this story. I suspect that's why we don't see a nice bow tied around it. Oh, yeah, and the man lived happily ever after. Because we see him, it seems like he's running off to the priests. It's opportunistic. I've heard about that Jesus. Well, guess what? He did this. Now, it could be, I could be reading too much into it. It could be he's going so excited to tell them. However, it doesn't appear to be that way. Because the reason I can say that is because in John chapter 9, I think it is, we read a very similar story of Jesus doing a miracle, healing a man who's born blind. And this man stands before the leaders as well, and he is totally transformed. And he starts preaching to the leaders. So he's not going opportunistically. He's talking about, he says things like, I don't know who he is. All I know is he healed me. I was blind and now I can see. So you've got these two stories, which I think are similar enough that you're supposed to weigh them against each other, but see that the results of those two stories at what happened in those healed men was very different.
Yeah.
For us to look at that and go, I want to be like the blind man who was healed and be thankful, rather than the one who thought I was entitled to something or whinging and complaining because everybody else gets all the good stuff and I don't.
Yeah, yeah. And that happens in real life.
And that's a real life issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's written. So we can be like seek to be the one who's grateful and thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what this story is all about. It was a pool that was known for healing. You can go there now, and there's no water there anymore. I think from memory, they think the spring that probably fed it is dried up. But they know that they've been able to find the evidence of where this pool was. I walked in it, and they said they had this belief that when it says the water was stirred, that it was an angel. But I think they recognised it was probably the spring. But what?
Well,
Sorry,
I had a Monty Python moment about that going.
Tell me.
Because Jesus, we always think in Hollywood that, when the waters were stirred, a big light came through and bubbled up the waters and stuff like that. And I was thinking, what happens if you got this room full of people and they're just a rabble of people and there's all these voices, and next minute you hear this door open, squeak open, and everyone stops. And then they see this old lady with a basket going,
where you going?
down to the stairs, and she lays out a mat, puts a basket in, and then grabs the soap out, grabs a piece of washing and starts scraping the water. And everyone goes, "Get in, everybody!
Jump in.
And that was the angel
that came.
The washerwoman.
The washerwoman at the water. I like it. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It was definitely something. And the other thing is worth noting is that this was not this practice of jumping in the water. And it was a good example of what they call Hellenism. It was actually a Greek thought that had come into Jerusalem. The scholars believe this is what this place, Pool of Bethesda, which means you were talking about what it was, House of Grace or House of Mercy.
Like
House of Grace.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be a house of grace, right? A place where you would go and receive grace. That's what it means. But it's what scholars call an Asclepion.
Yeah.
Which is named after the Greek god Asclepius. Now, Asclepius was a healing god, a god of healing.
Oh, okay.
And there were Asclepions. They were basically the forerunners to hospitals, but very mysterious and cult-like. So what happened in Asclepions, and I've been to one in Greece, and they're all over the empire, is there were these places where you would go there, and you would often you'd have a dream. So you'd sleep the night there. And sometimes they'd even have snakes, and they'd get you to get bitten by these snakes. And the theory was these snakes the venom would make you go into a trance state. Mm-hmm. And during the night, you'd fall asleep, and their belief was that while you were asleep, you'd get a dream, and that would be the God telling you what your healing was. And they'd have all these priests that would walk around and actually wake you up. If you were dreaming, wake you up and say, what are you learning? And they'd write all this stuff down. So this is early healing mentality, right? And some of these Asclepions, they had these bubbly water things too. So it led to this belief that this was a place where you could find healing. And in the middle of Jerusalem, here's a place where they're believing they're getting healing because of, when it says the angel stirred the water, it's all linked to Greek. It's a blending of Greek pagan religion and Jewish religion. So I actually reckon Jesus went there on purpose to pick a fight, to basically show, hey, that water doesn't heal you.
I do again.
I do again. So he went there to make it clear who the true source of healing was. Yeah. So I think, once again, we look for healing in the wrong places, and Jesus is, like we were talking about, the water of life. Jesus is looking to show, in John's gospel especially, it's written, so Jesus is able to show he's the water of life, he's light, he's the healer, all these things that, all these I am statements. There's 7 I am statements. I am the bread of life, I am the water of life, I am the light of the world. These are all statements that John is using to tell a story about who this man Jesus is.
Yeah.
And he's greater than all of the rituals. He's greater than all the other gods. He's all the things that's supposed to point to him are just signs. They're not thing in themselves. They're a sign that points to him.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus is trying to illustrate.
Yep.
So we go to him, folks.
Yep.
Go to him for what you need. Don't go looking elsewhere.
Yeah. I think that sums it up beautifully.
Awesome.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Rowan.
Thanks, everyone.